Tales from the streets.
What's up, baby? You ready to get into this?
That's it, bro.
So we were talking a little bit offline, and I want to get into the evolution of equipment, law enforcement equipment, and kind of what we mean by that. We've touched on it a little bit, but I think the explosion of technology and the use of software and programs and stuff like that is interesting. But you brought up a good point, and the First Amendment auditors, which I didn't realize that's what they were called, but I'll just read it real quick. A First Amendment auditor is an individual who records encounters with public employees or officials in public spaces to test and document the government's response to their First Amendment rights, particularly the right to film and photograph in public areas. I have thoughts on it, but I want to get your perspective.
Yeah, man. So I think I don't know if this is a growing trend. I know with things like TikTok and YouTube, I know this kind of stuff gets a lot of, what do you call it? Like clickbait, you know? It gets a lot of that. Well, I understand the theory behind it and I guess the point of it. At the same time, I don't get the point of it because sometimes I guess some of the depictions that you see online are like they're antagonizing. You know what I mean? So it's like it's not that they just happen to be somewhere and someone's trying. It's like they're going in there with the intention of doing this and kind of like raising up, not causing a sting, but like they're going there with the intention to antagonize someone to elicit a response. And I'm just like I don't really understand the point in doing that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So it's not like, hey, I'm just out and about in public going about my daily life and all of a sudden I'm being accosted by cops or military or whatever it might be. It's you set a target in mind and you're like, I'm going to go provoke a reaction and see if they infringe on my First Amendment rights. And again, it's one of those things where I think legally you might have the ability to do that, but why? Like, what the fuck is the point?
Yeah, I don't get the point. I don't understand the point. Now, like I said, if you can, you're just doing your thing and that happens by chance. 100%, I get it. You're filming it. Obviously, and usually sometimes what's also surprising is the general public's reaction to it. Is
Yeah.
You can't. I don't agree to be on camera. Well, that's not that. It's also surprising on the other hand when they're capturing some of the stuff, the amount of people who don't know that that's not against the law to do that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I get it when they're running up, I said running up when they're encountering these, not even necessarily public officials, just like, like they're standing in front of a business on the sidewalk and the people are like, hey, I don't want you filming inside my business. I don't want you filming my business. Well, okay, well, all you can do is ask them. You can't tell them.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then obviously they call the police and the police come and now they're kind of getting, the others are kind of getting a 2-for-1. You know what I mean? Again, like I said, I don't understand the point in kind of setting that up and antagonizing that, but on the other hand, it is not ironic, but it's strange to see the amount of people who are just like, you being uncomfortable is not a right per se, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Well, there is also this misunderstanding on what rights are for a lot of people. Like one of my favorites is, the driver's license is a right. I'm like, no, it's not. And now I will say, I used to always say, I think it still is in Florida on the back. It says you are basically given the privilege to drive on the roads. I don't know if every state has that verbiage or that wording. And you see it a lot, not to make it all political, but you see, illegal immigrants, things like that. They're like, they have the right to have an ID or something like that. It's like, no, they don't. They don't. It's not a right. You have certain rights, but that is not one of them. But
Yeah.
I always go back to like, what is your point? What is the goal of what you are doing? And I had a good conversation with Mo and Chris Babino, and we touched on recruiting and the demoralization of law enforcement. And there's obviously a section in the United States that hates law enforcement, wants to have anarchy. I'd say good luck to them. We've seen the repercussions of that with, the Chaz and some of these other cities that were taken over by rioters and looters and pushed the cops out. you feel unsafe. But for those that do understand and appreciate what cops do, law enforcement, nationwide, there's a massive shortage of people who even want to join. And Chris touched on it a little bit, the DEI stuff. He's like, I've seen classes where it's all white men. He goes, because it just is what it is. He goes, I've also seen agencies suffering and struggling and can't fill a class because the leadership has said, we will not fill this class until you get me a proper mixture, whatever that mixture might be.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're just adamant, like, no, it's not going to happen. So with all those things being what they are, you now are taking, and I've seen many of them. I know what you're talking about. I've seen many of them on, YouTube or whatever, where, three cops are talking or having lunch or just, chit chatting and then they just get accosted by somebody going, I pay your salaries. What are you doing? This isn't what I pay you to do. It's like, dude, we're all human beings, man. I still need to eat. I still need to, decompress just because it doesn't look, I don't decompress the way you do.
Yeah, I also pay taxes.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is this, what business, what job does anybody else have where random citizens just come into your job or come upon you and start harassing the shit out of you while you're working?
Yeah.
Maybe mailmen.
Not a lot.
They get
yeah, true. But not a lot. Not a lot.
Yeah.
Well, to speak on, to touch on that, people say, like, well, you're a public servant. Okay, well, I see what you're trying to do there with the verb. You're going to serve me, but I see what you're trying to do, and that's not 100% what that means.
Well,
like
I provide a service. You might not like the service I'm about to provide you.
There we go.
Yeah, bro.
There we go.
Yeah, bro.
And I find I try to not necessarily mentor, but I come across a lot of younger cops, and I tell them, I say, listen, one, you should always try to be polite and diplomatic and lean on the thing. Obviously leave your personal views out of things. There's only so much that we're allowed to do that we can do. Try to leave your personal feelings on things and your opinions out of it as much as possible.
Yeah.
I feel, but you'll find the most quote unquote complaints or pushback that you'll get from the public is when you're doing when you're doing something that they don't agree with or they don't want you to be doing. Like, I want this person arrested. I can't do that. Well, you're not doing your job. Well, am I not doing my job or am I not doing the job the way you want me to do it? Because that's not the same thing. And I said that's when you'll, not that it's a dangerous place to be. I said that that's where you're going to find most of your, that's the little section right there that you'll probably start to interject some of your personal feelings in there.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you kind of have to find that little space of like, hold up, let me leave my personal, because typically it's like, hey, if I'm out of uniform, this conversation goes way different.
Yeah. For sure.
So you gotta lean on the side of being diplomatic and professional. So that's the part where you lean left, where you should be going right on that one. That's where you're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah, and when I was with the Secret Service, we actually dealt with this a lot because we would take over restaurants, hotels, I don't know, forums, conference, arenas, whatever, small businesses. Just depends on whatever the protective was doing or where they were. And you went from having somebody who's like, I'm just trying to go to work, and they're used to walking down the sidewalk, and now all of a sudden they're being like, hey, you got to go another way, and they're like, why? I don't want to. And so, yep. And then also you get people who want to stand just out. Where's the security bubble? Well, technically it's here. This is the visual security bubble. And so they would stand just outside it. They want to record, agents and their movements and, all this other stuff. And that, once again, I understand. You are a citizen. You are a taxpayer. So I get it. But you're putting people in danger. You're making people with guns who are there to do a job uncomfortable and feel unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
Any reasonable human being would say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be any part of it, but they want to engage and they want to provoke a negative response. They don't care about the proper ones. Like, rarely do you ever see the law enforcement professional who comes out, articulates very well with the rules, the laws, statutes, the reasons for them being there, the legality of what they're doing. A lot of the time, and I get it. Some of those people have been standing there for, 8, 10, 12, fucking 14 hours. It's like, bro, just get the fuck out of here. Leave me alone. I just want to finish my job and go home. Leave me the
Yeah.
fuck alone. It's that kind of shit. And it's interesting to me because we were taught, I'm not quite sure. I think it was when Bush was in office back then, completely policy, how we did it. Hey, we got 4 different protest groups. These two hate these two. So we would separate them like, hey, here's your protest zone. Here's your protest zone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, somebody said, hey, that's a violation of my rights, my constitutional rights. I should be able to. Yep. And so it's like, well, all right, you want to go mix with these, pro and not pro agitators. What the fuck do you think is going to happen? They start fighting and yelling and violence ensues and riots. It's like, it was a reasonable solution to an issue. We're not stopping you from protesting. You just didn't like where you were protesting. It's fucking annoying, dude. And
back to the point. What is the point of your opinion? What are you trying to?
yeah, it's like, do you want to be seen? Are you just trying to disrupt? And I feel strongly that if you disrupt a motorcade, or like you see all these conservative speakers who go speak on colleges, which God bless them, because I would never fucking do that. And they get shouted out, drowned out, threatened, pulling fire, just the fucking disarray. And it's like that, to me, that feels like it should be a criminal violation. You're putting people, you're making them feel unsafe. You're putting them in possibly a dangerous situation. You pull a fire alarm. That is already a crime, but it's like, oh, but why did they pull it? Oh, well, because they hated this guy. Well, all right, that's understandable. No, it's not. No, it's not. Getting up once again, it's, it's almost like people on Facebook, like, fuck you, you're a piece of shit, when they want to call you every name in the book, but they see you in the street. I'm like, I bet you won't say that to my face. They damn sure won't. They do the same shit when you're up there speaking, trying to have, get your point across, and they want to call you, I don't know. I'm not going to say it all on the radio. It's fine. But they want to call you all these names. It's like, in any normal discourse, you would never do that. Why do you feel so comfortable you could do it now?
Exactly. I just don't understand, man. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, let me ask you that. I didn't mean to get on this, and I guess it's touching on political stuff, but it kind of ties in. The Trump administration, they're starting to deport. They're not, again, I'm not an expert on visas and green cards, and I kind of understand the difference, and I know how to read, but people who come here to work or learn, or fuck it, even if they came here and they have a whole green card, and then all they do all day long is try to undermine America and talk about how shit, and not just their speech, but they try to organize groups and protests and shut down and take over campuses and businesses. And now it's not getting much media news, but they're fucking bombing and burning Tesla dealerships, which is so asinine. I don't like the CEO, so I'm going to blow up all these people who bought a Tesla. I don't get it, but this administration is like, you know what? You do that shit, your green card will send you back. Fuck you. What do you think about that?
I'm not. I guess I don't think it's an oversimplification, right? But I know there's a lot of people who lean left and lean right. I usually try to lean on the side of practicality. And again, we've talked about this before. Most of the time, I look at the country, not necessarily politics as a whole, but just the country, right? It's like, okay, it's like, if you look at the country like your house, like your home, right? How many people would you let in there without vetting them, right? And if you had someone as a guest in your home who was causing issues, you would want them to be kicked out, or you would want to remove them from your space. And like, hey, what you're doing is not in line with what we got going on inside this home. You need to leave.
Yeah.
And like, to me, it's as simple as that. Now you can all kinds of different undertones if you want to, look at other stuff. Again, like I said, this is a oversimplification probably of just the broadness of theory, but that's how I kind of look at it. I'm like, I've never, and again, some of the stuff is like, they're deporting people or illegal. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, what are they doing though? I'm like, I mean, you can pretty much fly. I mean, you can be a citizen here and fly under the radar and never be bothered, never have any kind of law enforcement, interaction. You can pretty much be off the grid. I'm like, if you're over here and you're just doing what you're supposed to, not necessarily do what you're supposed to be doing, but if you're just, going about your life, trying to enjoy it and, being a productive member of society, I don't see what the issue would be.
Yeah. Well, again, and this is where the immigration thing is a lazy it's lazy the way people talk about it. Because again, I don't know. My political party would be reasonableness, whatever that is. You see something like, hey, clearly this is bad. You know, the debt. Well, again, whatever. We could touch on whatever. And I'm like, well, what's reasonable here? But immigration is like, dude, you know, if you want to, I've said it a bunch of times, you want to come here and go to school and start businesses and work or just get a job and be in like you said, a productive member of society. Come on in. Welcome. Happy to have you. Some of my favorite people in the world are people who immigrated to the United States recently, not, you know, 4 generations ago. Like coming here now, like, hey, I have dreams. I want to expand. I want to start businesses. I want to do things. I mean, fuck, Elon Musk is an immigrant, right? He's South African and he's very high profile. I get it, you know, Tesla and whatever Space One is in his boring company, but like he's doing wild shit, man. And he employs hundreds of thousands of people. That's kind of what you want, man. That's what you want. But this weird thing where it's like, well, no, all immigrants are the same. No, they're not.
No.
Some people come here and they just want to do fucking criminal activity and they just want to sell fucking dope and fentanyl and wow out, you know, do bad shit and that's the criminal element. But then there's a large swath that come here and go, oh, America. Yeah, I'm just, you know, I'm going to live on whatever they give me and I don't have to work anymore and I have health care and my kids go to school and I don't have to do shit. I don't agree with that either. I'm sorry your country sucks. That's why you wanted to come here. Make your country better. I don't know what else to say. You know what I mean? And it can't be done. It can't be done. El Salvador, bro.
Yeah. Well, on the other side of that, there's people who are from here who are to subscribe to that same train of thought too.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
The issue is you can't kick them out.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like we got our own problems. I guess that's what I'm saying. We got our own problems. You are 100% correct. But those are our problems. We don't need to import other countries' problems too.
No, I agree.
You know what I mean? And El Salvador was a fucking violent hellscape for decades. They had an election. They had a mass movement, a will of the people. Now we could all, you know, argue about how he went about it because he was basically like, hey, anybody associated with criminality, if your brother was a fucking gangbanger, the whole family, you're all going to jail. Fuck it.
Yeah. I was like, yo.
Maybe a bit of a reach for me, but again, what would it be like if America had 50 years of just being run by gang members, cartels, violence, bombing, shootings, no infrastructure? You know, you don't know if they're going to kick the fucking door in, rob you, blind, kill you, whatever. And then you finally like, you know what? We got to stop this. How would you stop it?
Yeah. At some point enough is enough.
At some point, you got to figure that shit out, bro.
And it's, and I've this is the point I've made plenty of times. I said most things that people care about, right? Or have empathy for, sympathy for, but most people won't actually take action on something until it's affecting them specifically in their life, right? And so I think that's what it kind of seems to me, especially with that country, it was so overwhelming and affecting everyone's life that I think as a whole, we got to do something about this, right? And now this is actually funny because we talked about this once. I remember this conversation specifically with 50 Fiction, you know, shout out to the other show. But,
Yep.
We're talking about how there's multiple levels of reality happening at the same time. And not like in theory, like universes are stuck on top of each other. I mean, like actually these certain set of people are experiencing reality and life in a completely different way than in a whole other set of people, right? And once those things reality start being affected across the board, that's when something's gonna happen.
Well, you know, I didn't mean for it to go this direction, but it's kind of touching on like, we all know like the hood or the ghettos or the lower income, poverty stricken, whatever you want to call it. There's usually a few in every state, every county, whatever. Well, I say a few in every state. There's many in every state, a few in every county. Let me rephrase it that way. And I always like, how do you fix that? Like, how do, you know, because like you got like Crenshaw, it's been like a known dangerous area, like breeds and grows gang members. We had areas in Tampa, Florida that kind of did the same thing. And you're like, how do you penetrate that? How do you fix it? And I remember Hillsborough, they tried to roll out like free bikes. It all ended up in the pond in the reservoir in Alpha 5 in the pond. Alpha. which is right outside of the University of South Florida. And then they tried to do something where, like shopping carts, they were just taking shopping carts and it was just massive. Anytime they try to do something like, hey, this is a problem, let's try to address it, and we'll provide these resources. And almost in every count, they destroyed it. They being the few people in that community that took advantage. Because we've talked about it on the show before. Like, I've gone into low income housing, and a lot of the places you go in, you're like, I can't even walk in there because it's just food, trash, shit, roaches. Like, it's just completely unkept. It's like a trash can. But then their neighbor will be somebody who goes to work every day, comes home, spick and span, clean. They take pride in what they got. They're just trying to do they're living their life like a normal citizen. I would say the majority are like that, just normal, decent human beings trying to work and live their life without being accosted and felt like they're, unsafe. But how do you penetrate something like that? And, a lot of people say it's money, and I wouldn't disagree. You got to build those things up. You got to renovate. You got to infrastructure, water, all these things come into play. And again, we're kind of touching on political stuff, but it's like, all right, well, we've got 300 billion, 400 billion, 500 billion, and we're funding all these, fucking things all over the world. And it's like, what about our people, like, that are here, that need help, that need infrastructure, that need running water? The fucking fact that we have, I think it was something like 100,000, which I know is not a lot, that don't have running water in the United States is fucking crazy to me.
Wow.
Bro, like, what are we talking about?
And like you said, not to get political, but it's like, when we're sending billions of dollars to other countries, and then we have veterans, we have senior citizens, we have young kids who are like homeless on the street who
Yeah.
can't afford to take care of. So it's like the optics aren't good on that, and
No.
it's like I just don't understand. Like I said, I think of it, the country like my home. Like how could how would it look if the people that live here is like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna take care of this one room in the house, but I'll go across the street to my neighbor's house and fix up their backyard.
Yeah,
Like,
let me spend all my resources on my neighbor's house. Yeah.
Where's my neighbor's house and not fix my like what is happening with that? What's going on? I don't understand that. And it's like this is probably something from the other show, but it's like, and I know we talk about this all the time. It's like what is actually happening? Like something's happening now. We're not seeing and we're not aware of.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of like seeing the outcomes or the result of things that are happening. I don't know if I want to say behind the scenes, but deals and policies and whatever that we're not seeing the upfront of it. We're just seeing the end result, and it's very strange to look at.
Yeah, and the things that are being done, like, again, I talk about California, Seattle, and Oregon, Chicago, New York, and it's like, where they're allowing homeless people to camp on the streets and all this stuff because they're like, oh, it's public, it's taxpayer funded, they should have a right to access it. It's inhumane to not allow them to do this. And it's like, have you been to Skid Row, sir, ma'am? What about that is humane?
No, nothing about it. That's not how people are supposed to be living.
No.
It's not.
Even if that's how you absolutely want to live, that means there's something wrong with you. You shouldn't want to live in human feces surrounded by disease, violence, and drugs. Help those people. Like that. Why are we allowing this to be a norm? I mean, I was reading things. They're finding diseases. They had a couple episodes of the bubonic fucking plague again. Like what? From the dark ages? Like what the fuck are we doing? Dude, how is that humane? I don't get it. I just don't get it, man. And I'm not saying the government's the answer. I'm telling you right now, it's not. But I think that kind of ties into what we were getting into, the advancing of technology and equipment, because, apps are fucking amazing. But like when San Francisco, they had the poop app and you could fucking plot everywhere there was human shit. 20, 30 years ago, that wasn't around. You wouldn't be able to see that. You just have to get a feel from the people around there. Now it's like, yo, look at this app. This is wild, dude. So technology is definitely advancing, and how law enforcement chooses to use it could have a huge impact on the efficiency of law enforcement.
Yeah, we talked about this a bit often. I wonder, especially in the law enforcement realm, we have all these different, like apps and programs and, maps and data and all these kinds of things. And I'm wondering if, is it helping or is it hindering law enforcement to be actually good investigators or not? Like, I kind of see it in the same realm of like, what we call these, like the iPad kids, where it's like, yeah, they're so technologically advanced, especially at a young age, but like, no people skills.
Yeah.
Because
No social skills. Yeah.
no social skills, like everything is on computer, everything's, like, hell, even the GPS mapping system. There's people who literally couldn't tell you how to get across town without looking at the map. I'm like, so you've never driven this before? Well, hold on, let me put my GPS in. I was like, no, you shouldn't necessarily need a GPS to get certain places. Like, do you know, like, if I stopped the car right now and we didn't have a computer, would you know where you are now? Well, no. Like, okay, so what happens when it's all, like, I guess a better question is what happens if you take all this stuff away? Are people still able to do a good job? I wonder if I guess that's what the question I'm looking, the frame I'm looking at it in
Yeah.
is if it's helping or hindering in the sense of like, if we didn't have this, would we still be good cops or being good?
Well, I think it's about how you use it. So I'll stick on the GPS thing for a minute because I have found myself, I use it more for, especially, when you're in the bigger cities, construction, road closures, you know, I know how to get where I'm going, but I don't know every road closure, traffic I can divert, but also just timing. I can just, hey, because usually I'm going to meet somebody somewhere. I'm like, hey, I'm 10 minutes out. I kind of have a feel for that when I'm doing it on my own, but the GPS is like, look, you'll be there in 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is. Or, hey, something happened. There's a crash. It's 45 minutes. You're going to be a half hour late. Those are things I don't know that I can do or calculate without a GPS just in my head.
Oh, no.
I know where I'm going, but so I hear what you're saying, but it's all about how you use it and why you're using it.
Yeah, that part I understand. I get it. It's like, hey, you put in the GPS, like you said, hey, I was unaware there was an accident on 75 or, F4, whatever. I was unaware of. I need to leave now as opposed to 30 minutes from now. But
Yeah.
100% get that, right? But there's literally people who cannot get around without using it. I put it this way. I come from a time, and we may be dating ourselves here, but come from a time when like you actually had to like, the GPS wasn't a thing. You had to know where you were going before you left the house.
Oh yeah. I remember
Or like
that. I
you had
used
to
to have to
like
print out the map quest or
print
whatever.
out that. So you had to print out the map quest and know the route and know where you were going ahead of time. And then you actually got to kind of look at the map and be like, hey, if something happens, I can get here by going here, here, or here.
Yep.
Right. So, I mean, I guess if I'm looking, like I said, GPS in the sense of like, hey, there's a diversion. It should take this long. But again, like I said, there's people who don't have no idea where the hell they're going and
Yeah.
where they're at, and like in the sense of GPS. And I know it's in that scope, it kind of helps because in theory, well, you know why I'm laughing. In theory, uh, should something happen to you, it should be used for that purpose, right? The other people can find you if you know, something happens, you're incapacitated or whatever, you can't get on the radio. Like people should be able to know a majority of where you're at. Like that I get.
Yeah.
We know the other pieces of that. Okay.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I think some of like the other databases though are maybe helpful, right? So like, you run people in what we have done here is RMS, you can kind of look at the history of things, that kind of database. Okay. Yeah, I get that. 100%. Then they help me make a better decision based off of who I'm dealing with. Cause I now have an idea of the history of said person. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, this guy has a history of fleeing to elude, batting on law enforcement. Well, okay, maybe I need to posture myself differently, ask different questions, do different things, like 100% that. Because if I'm not reading that, then I don't know, I don't necessarily know who I'm dealing with, right? So I think
Yeah.
it makes sense in that regard.
Well, again, we were talking about before, like the maps, and I laugh only because this is when I was with Hillsborough, we had a map software on our laptops where you could click on the residence you were going in, and it would kind of give you. It was supposed to give you like, hey, this person's on probation, and it was supposed to give you a little bit more involved than what you're getting in the call. Like, hey, John is calling because Dave is being a dick. It's like, oh, hey, John and Dave are known violent felons. they're on probation. These are the rules. So you kind of had a little bit more to link into. And I think I remember I was talking to somebody and it was his creation. And I was like, yeah, it kind of sucks because it takes forever to load. It's not always up to date. I did like 3 probation checks. None of them are registered on there. And he's like, oh, well, that's mine. And I felt like an asshole. But I will say, after that conversation, they made those updates. And so when I last left, I mean, this is 2015, they had made some updates to it and you see the value in it. And kind of going in line with technology, a lot of time right now, what I'm seeing, law enforcement agencies as a whole, they're super stressed out about recruiting and bodies and numbers. And again, I'll just keep sticking with, we need to be more efficient with what we have now. Not that we don't need to keep recruiting. I'm a big proponent in that. But the technology that's available, I mean, I went to a demo. They have guns that are basically will not shoot unless it feels your hand. So it's biometrically coded to your hand. It has an LCD screen on the back, tells you how many rounds you got. So kind of some cool shit. I think it's a little clunky in an actual firefight because if you're trying to change mags and your hand's not perfectly suited, the mag won't drop. Yeah, a little odd. And then I know a lot of people are going to red dots and all these different aiming. It's not software, but I guess technology. And yeah, well, listen, I just went through training and I got to shoot a bunch of this stuff. And I'll tell you right now, target acquisition and all that was a lot easier and aiming was a lot easier, but you still have to have the fundamentals, right? Okay. You and I both learned on iron sights. That's how I learned how to shoot all the weapons, but anything that could help make those things quicker, more accurate, safer, I'm all about it. And then I saw it was more, they did a presentation on it. It wasn't something that I believe is rolled out yet, but it's kind of tying in, what do they call it? Like the Google glasses, like where you put the glasses on, it emails, text, like it's kind of like it projects it so your eyes can see it.
Yeah.
I might be oversimplifying it, but the presentation was dope because basically what it was like eye protection. So like Eye Pro that pretty much everybody wears when you're shooting. But within that, you could walk up to a house and it would be telling you, hey, it has facial recognition. This is who this person is. This is who this person is. This person has a warrant. This person's on probation. Or, hey, this is Susie. We don't know who this person is. Whatever it is, but it's giving you live feed data. And I thought to myself, that is so cool and concept, but you would have to train with that because that is a lot of data that your eyes are diverting to your glasses and you're not really ascertaining what is actually happening in front of you. What, you're watching their hands. Where are you? Your surroundings, is there anybody else around you? Those kind of things. Again, I think they're trying to go in the right direction, but it's like the practicality of it in the moment when you're going to a domestic or a burglary or a robbery in progress and there's some action needs to be fucking taken. Do you need additional distractions flashing before your eyes?
Not to dive off the subject, but I think someone, I don't forget who asked me this, but and they said with the growth of technology, are we leaning towards, are we getting to a space where we're getting into that minority report area of like, we
arresting someone for the crime, yeah,
before the crime. I'm like, that's a slippery slope, man. That's a slippery slope, buddy. I don't think we want to get into that.
Well, yeah, again, efficiency, right? So like when we were working with probation and other agencies and we were basically targeting people already on probation, they already had rules that govern how they lived since they were not in jail. And a simple probation check, hey, you're supposed to be home at 9:00 every night. You're supposed to have your ankle monitor on. You're not supposed to have the internet. You're not supposed to be around alcohol or guns. And you go and you do regular checks, weekly, monthly, whatever it might be, daily if they're that bad. You're simply making them adhere to the rules that they're supposed to be living by anyway. And when you violate them and you arrest them, you are potentially stopping. You've already proven that you cannot be trusted to govern yourself outside of rules. So now rules have been enforced upon you by a judge or court, whatever. And it's up to law enforcement to enforce those rules. And if you're only being checked on every 6 months, what are you doing in the meantime? I'm not forcing you to go out and commit crimes. I'm not forcing you to violate your probation. if you choose to do that and then I arrest you, you could feel targeted, I believe, right? You might not have been going to commit a crime. You might have been going to do something inane. I don't know. I don't have a good answer.
Yeah. I, mm. I think obviously law enforcement is a reactionary job.
Oh yeah.
So to me to do anything that is protecting, of course, because we want to make sure like, hey, I want you to know I'm watching you, right? So
Yeah.
to keep you on the straight and narrow, it's basically I'm doing this so you won't do something in the future that I have to react to, right? So you're kind of getting out of it, but as far as like arresting someone because with predicting that you're gonna, I'm like, I don't know about that. I
Yeah.
don't like that.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And so I'm stealing this from Chris too, because we got into a little bit of like, do college degrees make you better cops? And does a college degree outweigh experience? I don't have a fully fleshed out thought on that just yet, but he made a comment. He goes, I know a lot of cops that have PhDs, but when you're wrestling a dude covered in his own shit, what semester? Yeah. What semester did they cover that in college? Yeah.
Uh,
When you're getting shot at or somebody pulls a knife on you or you're seeing somebody you beat the fuck out of somebody else, what degree makes you better for that, to deal with that? Or what degree makes you a better investigator? Like cops that have been on the road for a while, they can like, hey, something is wrong here. Like they just have that feeling. Like, nah, this ain't right, bro. What you're saying is not making sense to me. It's not, no, it's not rational. It's not normal.
mhm,
And I don't know, man. But also, like, I went back to school. I got my master's in criminal justice and I learned a lot about law enforcement. And that's a lot of where my thought process around the efficiency, the professionalism, and the
mhm.
need to change law enforcement came from. But I'm not, I'd be lying if I said it made me a better, like, cop, street cop. No, I don't think so.
Because we both had busy weeks this last week or so, and I didn't tell you the story, man. But so a lot of these calls, they come off as a lot of calls are similar in nature about how they're dispatched.
Yeah.
Two, the comments on how you read them and how they come across, right? So one of these it's one of these ones where it's like, hey, obviously, AirPods have GPS and that kind of thing. So hey, it's one of these, hey, my AirPods are traveling to this location, and we tell the people, listen, I can go up here and ask and knock on this door and ask him to this way piss off. You got pissed off. There's really not much I can do about it.
Yeah.
I can't kick their door in. I can't say, hey, you stole these. They could have found it. It could be a whole bunch of reasons. You can't just kick somebody's door because send AirPods with GPS to this house, right? Tell the guy that either no, I get it, I understand, but he didn't really give me the full scope in the initial contact, right? He just said, hey, I'm missing some AirPods. One, I was like, okay, no. They're like, no, this is not. I had AirPods that maybe next door. And I'm like, kind of, sign my head now. I'm like, oh, okay. Team detective now. So
Hmm.
they're on next door. Knock on it. And there's an old washing machine out front of this door, right?
Yeah.
Knock on it. Right before I just see out of the corner of my eye, I notice there's some cards on top of this washing machine. Kind of strange. So they look like either a bank card, but whatever it is, like cards that typically would be in a wallet or in a purse or something, right?
Yeah.
Ask her about that. I don't even know it. Ask her about the AirPods. No, we don't have anything here. Blah 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 blah. Okay, is this you? It's me and my husband. We don't blah blah. I'm like, okay, and it's kids in there. Strange. Okay, so these cards are these cards yours? Oh no, they're not. No, okay. Well, when it's like found property, like yeah, I have no idea what those are. Okay, so I'm trying to pick it up and look at it. It happens to be the guy ID and credit card who's making the complaint. So I'm like, okay, we got a little bit more. Like there's something is afoot here,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like, okay, now you got a little bit more reason to be paying attention. Go back to the guy. So now I give you the full scope of. He's like, hey, I had my car towed last night, and I'm missing a bag. In this bag was my AirPods, of course, my a wallet, a handgun, And I was like, what? Yeah, you should have started off. First of all, you should have started off with that.
Yeah, you start out with the
Like, what?
AirPods, bro.
You should
Come
have,
on.
it's like, bro, you should have led with the, first of all, you should have led with the handgun.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you doing?
I'm like, okay. So, so she's thinking, oh, this is the tow truck driver's house. You know, just two guys came to tow it, but they didn't tow it to a yard. The car was in a ditch. They just went out of a ditch and that was it. So I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. You know, obviously you use some of these programs, blah, blah, whatever, call it tow company. He's like, nope, my two guys live out in a whole different part of the county, whatever. So I'm like, nah, something adding up here, right? The whole do it, knock and talk. Then we again, end up getting consent from everybody that lives in there, right? And after this, we look around and it's one of those things. It's been a long time since I felt like my gloves needed gloves,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? Right. So we're doing all the searching, and obviously, once you get through search warrants and the search before, it's like when you're looking for something specific that's very small, it's a very large area to search through, right?
Mhm.
Long story short, we don't find anything. Kind of requesting the guy within there, and for some reason, I feel like you're not being 100% honest with me.
Yeah, what's going
I
on?
wouldn't. I wouldn't. I was like, bro, there's a reason why these AirPods are pinging in this house. I was like, your neighbor has a camera, has a ring doorbell that literally looks right into your front door. I was like, you've been saying that you've been home all night, you never left. I was like, now if I go look at this camera, is it gonna tell me a different story? Ah, well, man.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. So, long story to it, he said, well, I saw this car again. The story was give himself away in the story because I never told him where the stuff came from. So he's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I saw this car that was in the ditch and the window was down and there was nothing in it. And then I rode up the street a little bit further about a block and then I found this bag with all this stuff in it. Okay, but you knew it wasn't yours. Well, no. I'm like, so why didn't you just call the police? Well, I didn't want you to think that I stole it. I'm like, so now what do you?
Okay. Yeah.
Everything you're saying makes it worse. But essentially, you got all the stuff back. The guy got his gun back, and obviously that guy ended up going to jail. But I say that to say this is that me having a master's degree doesn't necessarily help me pick up on these little small things
Yeah.
when you kind of like you have a feel for what's happening on a call or like in the street or whatever. It's like you can't learn that out of a book, and you can't learn that from a degree program or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now, again, that call could have been handled a completely different way. I could have pretended I didn't see that there, those cards there, and just walked away and been done with it in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I want to, while you were talking, I remembered one more thing about technology though, and we can end with this because it ties into your new position that you'll be going into with traffic crashes and stuff. But so again, I started my career with Hillsborough County, and basically they had this, whenever you work a traffic crash, the licenses, plug in the information, you can hit print, it prints out like this whole thing. It even prints out the diagram. It was fucking amazing. I thought,
Yeah.
you can add tickets to it. It was fucking great. Then I go to Maine State Police and I work my first traffic crash, and they're like, all right, yeah, there's all these forms and you have to like hand draw, fill out, with a pen, pencil, whatever. I'm in there drawing with a ruler. I'm like, what the fuck, bro? And so once again, bringing it back to technology, yeah, there are some things that I think make you more efficient and make you, instead of spending 7 hours trying to draw a crash, you can knock one out in probably 20, 30 minutes, depending on the nature of the crash with technology.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like I said, the technology definitely makes a lot of things easier. I think when the technology is tools and you're not necessarily relying on the technology to do the job for you. Because again, there's a firm believer in just the basics. Like you said, we talked about the red dot, right? Red dot's great. Why does that shit don't work? You still gotta be able to use the actual things that don't require
Yeah.
there's a use for technology as a tool. I was like, but I don't think people should be, especially cops, should be leaning on the tools to do the job for them. There's certain things that are the basics that you can only get that are tried and true over time.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, with the traffic crash, I was like, yeah, I don't want to spend an hour and a half drawing a diagram by hand When
No.
you know what I mean? When I could do it for 20 minutes, and in some cases it's already pre-drawn. You got to plug and play some stuff in here. So obviously
Yeah.
that makes me do my job. Well, it helps me do the basics. Put it this way, I think I like it when technology helps me do the basics more efficiently, and it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily substitute doing the job for me.
You know what? I'm going to add one more thing too, because techniques too. So that's something I learned a couple weeks ago. I was going to firearms instructor school, and we were doing everything, the law enforcement, the way you stand and everything like that. It's hard to do audio, but they were like, you can be a lot faster. And they showed us clips and videos of like these professional target shooters and speed drawers or whatever. And they're like, they're lean probably, 70 degrees back with their fucking hand on their gun. It's a high machine gun. It's got like a 1 pound trigger pull, all this stuff, like super, like just barely breathe on it. It'll fucking fire. He's like, yeah, he can shoot 6 rounds in 2 seconds. Fucking amazing. In what world are you ever going to be positioned that way? And then number 2, do you want to issue out, 80,000 guns with a 1 pound trigger pull? And everyone's like, hell no. So he goes, you're going to have to use some reason and logic. So even techniques, like, he's like, oh, you can shoot so much faster if you do all these things. It's like, yeah, but what's the practicality there? Perfect, bro. I think dude, that was great. I think we touched on it. You got anything you want to leave with?
No, I mean, well, what's about that? We can segue this into another episode. But I was in California for work for a bomb squad class, and this usually happens within the region sometimes. But I was very surprised when you were talking about recruiting stuff of having a class full of white men. I was like, man, I'm usually one of, if not the only one of very few black cops in the room,
Yeah.
black bomb tech in the room. And I was like very surprised that in this conference, this class that I went to, the infrastructure class I went to, that I was like, wait, there's one guy public safety and one guy who was on the Air Force EOD side. And we were literally the only 2 specs in a class of like 100 people. About that. Like, these people are from all over the country.
Yeah.
I was like, huh. It's wild, bro. No, but again, we could touch on that more in depth, the recruiting stuff, in another episode. But I just thought that was just reminded me when we talked about the recruiting thing.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about that as well, because the thing is this, at the end of the day, you're still short manpower, right? And once again, I'll say this for 100th time. I don't give a shit, white, black, brown, whatever, male, female. I don't give a fuck. Can you do the job? But also do you want to do the job? And yeah, I would love to see out of 100 people, 20 are, minority females, minority male, 20 minority males and all these different backgrounds. But, if you went around to everybody in the agency and said, hey, let's all go be bomb techs, they'd be like, fuck you, bro. I don't want to do that shit. Well, what do? Do you just not fill the position? Like, that's something that I understand the concept of it, but it's like, at the end of the day, you can't make people do something they don't want to do. Hey, we need to have 100, female Navy SEALs and Green Berets. I don't want to do that. Well, no, but we need that because we need to see what I'm saying? Like, I know females that could have 100% do it, physical fitness wise anyway. I'll just phrase it that way.
Yeah.
But you can't make people do stuff they don't want to do, man.
Jump on in there. You know what I mean? But like you said, there's not a lot of people who want to do it, can do it, whole nother thing.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. But so we'll get into that on the next one. We definitely dive deep into that one.
No, that's good stuff. All right, brother. All right, man. I appreciate you, bro. We'll get together on the next one, baby.